One actually in today's video, we're going to have a look at weather going up towards the Easter period through next week. In today's video, later on, I'll probably have a bit of a look at the actual Easter weekend itself on the events page with the GFS midday run. Do that probably this evening on the events page. But this is going to look at the weather going through next week. A little bit uncertain what's going on. We could see some sort of a cold snap coming through later next week. But as I say, it is quite uncertain. Not all of the models are in agreement about this, so I'll have a look at the charts in a moment. Now, before I go on with the video, just want to advertise this video ads on my pages at GazWeatherVids.com. If you press play on the video ad to be supporting GazWeatherVids.com, thanks so much for doing that. Also got the content tabs, which are links to articles. So if there's any article that you're interested in, just click through the link. You'll go to the website and read the article. At the same time, GazWeatherVids will get a royalty fee on what you're doing, and thanks so much for doing that. So we'll start off with the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles. These are for the upper atmosphere, the temperature ensembles anyway. Precipitation is for down on the surface. Red line here is where the temperature should be in terms of the upper atmosphere at this time of the year. And for the coming few days, we see that we're going to be above average. Many of the lines here are above the red line. So certainly in terms of the upper air temperatures, we're going to see above average temperatures, but as we get through towards the 16th, 17th of April, which is just here, we do find many of the temperature lines dropping down. That's the cold snap I was talking about, running up to Easter, perhaps coming through from the north. It could stay quite cold for a few days as you get through to around the 19th, 20th, so over the Easter weekend really. But it's just that we're going to see the temperature starting to lift up, and that takes us through to quite a mild end to April or later part of April. Although as you get through towards the end of the chart, as ever, there is a lot of scatter there, so you wouldn't really want to be putting too much money on what's going to happen as we get through to the final week of April. But the suggestion with the ensemble mean, which is the white line, is that the temperature should be lifting up as we go through the Easter weekend and into the final stages of the month. Now, in terms of precipitation spikes, we have very few precipitation spikes coming up through the next few days, so not much rain at all to speak of. That's in association with these mild upper air temperatures above average upper air temperatures. It's now high pressure that's building in, bringing those above average temperatures in the upper atmosphere. So, yeah, a lot of dry weather, but as we get through towards the 16th, 17th, again, when we're getting this drop in the temperatures, we do get a few rainfall spikes coming through. It's not going to be a washout by any means, but it's certainly the suggestion that there's a trough of low pressure bringing this cooler air through, or colder air through, and possibly bringing some rain at times as well. But to be honest, nothing desperately wet showing up there. Really, that's quite a dry sort of chart for April, until we get to the very, very end of the chart when there's a couple of quite big spikes, but they're sort of outliers really. They aren't well supported, they're right at the end of the chart anyway. So I think the idea is that basically we're going to keep the dry weather, or the dry-ish weather that we've had through most of the spring. Of course, after that very wet winter, we've been wanting and been needing to dry out. We've had a dry March, we're having a dry April, so nothing particularly nasty coming up in terms of rainfall. The dry sort of trend continues. Now, the temperature anomaly for the next week, Thursday the 10th of April to Friday the 18th of April, Good Friday, is quite interesting because you would look at this these upper air temperatures on the ensemble and think it's going to be quite a warm week coming up. It's got to be above average. Although we do get that cold snap, you will think that these warmer days that we've got over the next 4, 5, 6 days should offset that cold snap and will turn out above average. Actually, that's not quite the case, because the actual anomaly for the next week is coming out a little bit below average. We're in those very pale blue colours. Now, the reason this is happening is that this rise in the temperatures, this warm sort of spell in terms of the upper air temperatures, being brought about by an area of high pressure. And high pressure in April, because we're still early in the year, means that we can get some quite cold nights. So what we've got going on is cold nights are setting fairly mild, warmish sort of days. Particularly when you put it together with this cold snap that's coming up towards the end of next week, those cold nights and the cold snap coming up at the end of next week, averaging it all out, we see the temperature anomaly coming out very slightly below average. So that's quite interesting. It just goes to show you that these upper air temperatures that I show you on a regular basis don't necessarily give you the total picture of what's going on in terms of the actual temperature anomalies on the surface. And this is particularly the case in winter, or it can be under areas of high pressure in winter, when you tend to get fog as well, and frost lingering all day, even with quite mild upper air temperatures. It's called an inversion. It means that down on the surface you get cold sort of air with the warm air aloft, nothing to stir up the temperatures because the winds are light. Anyway, I digress. So the idea is that the area of high pressure at this time of the year doesn't always produce above average temperatures. It does in summer, but it doesn't necessarily in April. It's still quite early in the year. This is a classic example of that happening. Anyway, I thought you'd find interesting explanation of what's going on there. So as we go through to the generic charts, this is the GFS for Monday the 14th of April. We've got this area of high pressure over the country. As I say, it will be high pressure. It's bringing those warmer upper air temperatures. But remember, we've got cold nights offsetting warmer days. That high pressure will hang around through the first half of next week, so a lot of dry weather. But eventually, through the middle of next week, we bring this trough of low pressure through from the northwest. So it'll probably take a band of rain around the 16th, Wednesday, next Wednesday, take a band of rain across the country and eventually introduce this colder sort of north to northwesterly flow. There's the main area of low pressure to the north of Scotland. Follow the isobars back, they're going quite a long way north, so there's quite a bit of cold air filtering around that on Thursday, the 17th of April. There's the upper air temperatures for next Thursday, a week's time, and yeah, we've got pretty quite cold air coming down across the country. -5 isotherms there over the country, so that's pretty cold air. Will be cold enough for showers to turn wintry, particularly over northern high ground. And there's the 528 dam line as well. Don't show you these very often, but when you're within that blue line, it means you're in proper sort of wintry air. So that is a proper cold snap there that the GFS is predicting as we go into the latter stages of next week, just running up towards Easter. I think we probably just have rain showers for England and Wales, but it's certainly cold enough for wintry showers. That's rain, hail, sleet, and maybe snow on hills for Scotland, Northern Ireland, and over the Pennines as well. There's the actual temperatures for next Thursday the 17th of April. And we're struggling to get into double figures in most parts, and that's a little bit below average for the middle of April, particularly cold for Scotland, where temperatures are just 3, 4 or 5 degrees. So a definite cold snap showing up on the GFS, but the ECMWF does not really agree with this. So here's the high pressure through the start of next week. I think we're certainly going to start next week under anticyclonic conditions Monday, Tuesday. What does the ECMWF do? It keeps that high pressure going into Wednesday. Eventually it slips eastwards through Thursday, allows this trough of low pressure to come in, so that if anything does turn it more unsettled. But we're not really bringing in that cold sort of north to northwesterly flow as we go in to Good Friday. We've got low pressure to the north of Scotland around Iceland. We're just bringing in a westerly really there across the country. So it's not particularly cold, but it is a little bit more unsettled. And that's how we go into Saturday, Easter Saturday. And Easter Sunday itself, actually, we find generally westerly winds with low pressure bringing unsettled conditions to Scotland. But perhaps not too bad, actually, for England and Wales. That's close to a cold snap, but the ECMWF doesn't really get there on this morning's evidence. The GEM finally the Canadian model, and yes, through the middle of next week, or the start of next week, into the middle of next week, got high pressure ridging in, keeping it largely settled through the first half of next week. But it does eventually bring this westerly through with this trough of low pressure through Thursday the 17th. That'll probably bring an active cold front across the country, some quite heavy rain. And there's the cold snap setting in as we go in to Friday the 18th, Good Friday. Follow the isobars back, they're going a long way north, so cold air coming down around that trough of low pressure, cold enough to turn the showers wintry again in the north as we get through to Saturday the 19th, Easter Saturday. Yeah, we're in a proper northerly flow there, look at that, definite northerly winds with the isobars going right way back to the North Pole, so that would be giving us some pretty hard overnight frost. It would also be giving us snow showers probably for Scotland, and wintry showers coming down in towards Northern Ireland, Northern, probably rain showers further south. So we have got the GFS and the GEM, the Canadian model, sort of going for a cold snap either leading up to or at the start of the Easter holiday. If the ECMWF isn't as cold, it doesn't really get there. It does turn a little bit more unsettled later next week, but it doesn't pull in that cold north to northwesterly flow. So we can't have great confidence in this idea of a cold snap next week, but it's certainly one to keep an eye on, because if it does come through, it could be pretty potent, I think, actually. Certainly with the risk of some hard overnight frost, and if for the north, the risk of some wintry showers as well. So we've got to keep an eye on it. It's late into April now. It's getting quite late into April. Lots of fruit blossom coming out. There's even some delicate plants, I would think, starting to come up now. So it's going to be pretty impactful, I think, if we do get this cold snap later next week. Certainly farmers and the gardeners will be quite concerned about this, I would imagine. So it's one to keep an eye on. Not necessarily too concerning yet, because we've not got the ECMWF in agreement, but certainly one to keep an eye on. I'll be looking at the full Easter weekend over the course of this evening on the events page, so come back for that full Easter update. But that's it for now, and thanks for watching.